The Ad Podcast. We've got a fun guest for you guys today. Rhonda Swan is a global brand strategist, PR exec, and a best-selling author, and the founder and CEO of the Unstoppable Branding Agency. Rhonda began her career in corporate America, holding an MBA and working as a high-level marketing exec for a Fortune 1000 pharmaceutical company, GSK, GlaxoSmithKline, where she managed massive multi-quarter advertising budgets. Driven by a desire to prioritize family and lifestyle freedom over a traditional corporate life, she made the bold choice to leave her corporate job in the mid-2000s. She quickly built a digital marketing infrastructure, famously becoming one of the early female entrepreneurs to scale an online business to over 7 figures using automated sales funnels. Rhonda, thanks so much for coming on. Super excited to learn a little bit about your company and your adventures and how you got out of the corporate hamster wheel. So
Yeah,
appreciate you spending
no,
some time with us
it's
today.
so good to be here, Dylan. Thanks so much. It's pretty funny too when you think about it. It's like, wow, it's been 23 years since I quit corporate. It's unbelievable to think that. And living out of the US for the last 17, almost 18 years, it's like, wow, where did this all go? Right? If it wasn't for the internet, it never would have been possible. So
Yeah, it's
it's
so
good to be
cool.
here. Yeah.
Well, I think that's the aspiration that I think a lot of people, live for. I know, every time I travel, I was just in Cannes and the south of France and Costa Brava in Europe. And every time I go on an adventure like that, I'm like, how do I figure out how to do this permanently? But, San Diego is pretty close to paradise too. So I guess I can't complain too much.
Yeah, fair enough. I actually met my
So,
husband 28 years ago in San Diego in Mission
oh,
Beach
no way.
surfing.
Let's go. Awesome. I love
Yeah.
that. Well, I gave a little bit of an intro there, but maybe you can contextualize it for us. So, where'd you grow up? What'd you study? How'd you get into the kind of corporate advertising world at a big Fortune 100 like GSK? And then what was it
Mm.
that caused you to want to break out and become, a early digital pioneer and get out of the rat race and move to Bali and do all these cool things?
Uh, yeah, gosh, it's like it's now. It used to be the American dream. Now I think it's everyone's kind of lifestyle these days. But yeah, girl from Detroit. Grew up very thin means. Dad was a drug addict, in and out of prison, and all the crazy things that you can imagine. And I focused myself on sports in order to keep my mind off all the chaos I think that was around me. And I started playing for the women's U.S. national team for softball when I was 12. And
Wow.
yeah, pretty cool stuff. So that sports gives you all the discipline, right? That you really need to make it as an entrepreneur. Little did I know. And so yeah, came from Detroit, had a big vision to go to California. Moved right after I grad school. I graduated grad school. In fact, I moved back to California, or to California, right about 8 months before we were invited to the Olympics in Atlanta for
Whoa.
softball. And so I had been playing for that all my life. And I coached even an extra 2 years on the European tour so I could see if I could stick around. And sure enough, I took the big job and, with GSK, and then we get the bid. But it was great to see, a team that you worked with for all your life to hit, kind of the big time. But unfortunately, the softball, the sport didn't stay in the Olympics, but
Hmm.
the learning and the lessons and the dedication really did. And so when I came to California, I was like, all right, I've got this big vision. I'm going to run a big company, and I'm going to work for the largest company in the world. And I pretty much did that for about almost 10 years. And interesting, you said, what got me to do this big transition. And it's funny because I met my husband surfing in Mission Beach in San Diego.
Let's go.
And yeah, we lived right on the ocean front in the Jamaica court, right in the front. He lived next door, I lived here. And it was like, 20 in our 20s, coolest time ever. And, we've been together for the last 28 years. But it's funny because you're in California, so you know how it was back in the early 2000s. Like everything you invested in just kept growing and growing
Oh
and
yeah.
growing,
Hmm.
right? And so we were like, we bought our first house for like 300,000, sold it for 8, and then bought the next one, went and moved up to Lucadia, bought that one for 1.5, sold it for 3, and then came back to La Jolla, and it was like we felt like we couldn't do anything wrong. Well, oddly enough, right when you think that is when everything switches. But I was traveling about an hour to work every day on the 5 freeway, and you probably know that one. And I watched a woman that had just had a baby 6 weeks before. She came into a meeting late, and my boss threw her on the cross for being late. And
Ugh.
here I am sitting there. I'm 30. I'm 53 now, and I'm sitting there going, "What am I gonna? What, wait, is that what I want to be for? A family, for women of the world, and do I want to do this?" So all this stuff comes down, and you hit these moments in time where you're like you question everything, and I was at that precipice. And I left that meeting and I came back and I told my husband, you know what? I'm going to quit my job. I don't want to put kids in daycare. And he's like, are you nuts? We just bought a 5 bedroom house in La Jolla. I don't care if I'm my boss's 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 boss. I'm not going to make enough money to, cover our lifestyle. And I was like, yeah, but I know there's a better way. And they'll get you. This is for context. This is in 2004.
Yeah.
So no social media, right?
Mhm.
No social media. The internet was just had been really kind of trickling for the last 6 years, right? So like I think Mosaic came out when I was in university, right? So like just to give some context to that. And so he's like, "Are you crazy?" I'm like, "Yeah, but there's this thing called the internet." And he's like, "This is nuts. You have a master's, And I said, "Yeah, I know, but I'm going to figure this out." Well, certainly the moment you put something out there is when everything shows up. Like, you're on the highway and you say, "I want a red car." And all of a sudden now all the red cars are there. You never saw a red car before. And that's how it was. And that night I was sitting watching TV, and it was like 11, 12 o'clock. I don't know if you remember, Tony Robbins used to come on and did these middle of the night kind of things. And it was like an infomercial or something. And it was
Totally.
Tony
Yeah.
Robbins talking about like, find your dream and find this. I'm like, yeah, yeah, I'm going to do that. That's what I'm going to do. And sure enough, Steve Jobs comes on. It's like a documentary interview. And they're asking him questions on what is he looking for in the next, in the next 10 years. And he said, if you don't learn digital marketing right now, in 10 years, you're completely obsolete. And I'm like, hold on, really? What? Okay. So does that mean like I'm in the beginning stages of something that everyone's going to be diving into? And at that point, that's exactly where we were. There was no, not a whole lot going on the internet, like certainly no online businesses. I mean, I think the only things that were around at that point that were kind of entrepreneurial were like MLM style businesses, so it was like, all right, let me see this. And I started double tapping and searching, how to make money online, online businesses, and there really wasn't a whole lot going on. Now, there was one person that popped up, and his name is Perry Marshall. And
Hmm.
Perry Marshall wrote the algorithm for Google, right? He was one of
Wow.
the He's one of the godfathers of Facebook ads. He actually taught everyone how to run Facebook ads. And so I search up Perry. I'm like, okay, I want to learn this copywriting thing. He's like, you got to learn to copyright. You got to learn to do Google ads. So I started learning. And sure enough, I said, okay, I'm going to find a bunch of products. I started pulling personal development products like Jim Rohn, Bob Proctor, all of the, at that time, that's when personal development was really starting to come into play. And I started running Google ads and selling products and telling people they can change their life. And so fast forward that one, I crushed it. I literally made a sales funnel before it had a cool name. I was taking people from a 3-line ad and saying, change your mindset, change your life, CEO income, working from home, just kind of like making up all these titles and these ad copy. And people, I was sending people to a flat, terrible website because you couldn't put video on back then, that
Oh
said,
yeah.
I was a corporate executive. I changed my life. Let me show you how to, sell things online. And I'll tell you what, I put an 800 number there. So get me, I was running a Google ad, right? People are clicking on the 3-line ad. They're going to a website and then they're calling me on an 800 number. And
Crazy.
my husband's like, are you nuts? This is crazy. It's like, I don't know, but people are calling me and they're buying these products. I really, people are like actually calling me. And I had thousands and thousands and thousands of people calling. And, it took me a couple months to get my groove. And sure enough, I hit a $36,000 a month, and then it just kept compiling and compiling from there. And I retired my husband, I retired myself, and yeah, that's kind of how it started. Now it went a little haywire after the third year, but I'm going to stop there because I've been kind of talking about a lot of stuff. But that was the gist of it, man. I just went for it.
I love it. So you basically built like one of the first, self-help kind of online stores, for
Yeah,
lack of a better
yeah,
word, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Before having Shopify, right? Just sending people CDs and books in a bag and online, or in the mail. It was crazy because nothing was digital back then. It was it was actually CDs. No, it was cassettes in the beginning. It was cassettes, and then it was
That's so
DVDs.
funny. Yeah,
Right?
I literally just talked to a guy, at Cannes who, broke Dane Cook, the comedian, by like
Yeah,
doing like blogger outreach and sending CDs to bloggers and
yeah.
stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, that was a little before my time. I think I came in right after that era. But like that was when the internet was truly like the Wild West, and it was
Oh my goodness.
kind of like there's still quite a lot of opportunities. So I love it. So you got out of corporate America. Your husband's like, did you make the right choice? You're making so much money that he gets to actually get out of his corporate gig as well. So what happened next?
Yeah, I mean, we were kicking it, right? We were just crushing it. It was like, I felt like we couldn't do anything wrong. And, we're like, okay, now I'm going to set our life up and I'm going to have a child in the next couple of years. So let's get super cash heavy. And we then, because of our real estate background, we had just been killing it. And so we're like, all right, so now let's just go big. And we met this guy that we had known for a while. He's like, oh, I'm doing this big real estate gig, golf course development in Flagstaff, Arizona. And we're looking for investors and we're going to, 10 exit and blah, blah, blah. And we're like, oh, this is perfect. So that's what we did, gave everything away. And about 30, 60 days before my daughter was born, we get a call from the banks that said, hey, Swans, you know all those homes that your name's on? Well, the construction loans are up and it's time to go into a permanent loan. And we're like, wait, no, 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 those homes aren't built yet. Like, yeah, but the money's gone.
Wow.
And we're like, wait, how is that possible? They're like, well, you gave power of attorney to your developer because you were having a baby. You didn't want to go to Arizona. Well, he took all the money out of the homes and stole it all. But because
Oh,
your name is on the deed, on the loan, you're on the rap for all of it. We see him stealing from
oh,
you, and you guys are, you're pretty much toast.
oh, oh, what a
Yeah.
nightmare.
Yeah, it was one of those. And then my daughter was born, and we're going, okay, well, this is great. Now what do? We live in a $1.5 million home. We got assets up our assets, literally. Uh, a new baby. And we had to fire bankruptcy, sold everything we owned, fire saled it all. And this coming up November, Dylan, we left, it'll be 18 years. We left with $12,872 to our name and a vision and a vow to never put our baby in daycare. And now she's 19 and we've lived in 52 countries and been out of the US for 17 plus years, and still telling the story of motivation that you can still do it no matter what happens.
I love it. Well, look, I think we wouldn't be talking today if that was the end of the story.
That's
So,
right.
I've, we all have setbacks, right? We have ups and downs. I've never had any well, I don't know. Maybe in my younger years, I would have things. My mom used to always say, "You're either going to be a CEO or you're going to be in prison," and you know, and
One of the
I
same.
have
It's always right to fine line, right?
so that can give you a little bit of a foreshadowing of what my
Yeah.
youth was like. But but as far as like once I kind of got out of like the pre college or post immediate college kind of bumpy road of like personal life, the career after 10 years into my career, kind of took off and never looked back. But so what do you do? Seems like you've been a study of like some really amazing gurus. Tony Robbins is such an
Yeah.
amazing inspiration. And it sounds like he
Hmm.
was like he was an early inspiration for you. You mentioned off camera that your daughter actually works for him now. So
Yeah, what a full
I
circle
imagine,
that is.
right? Yeah. So I imagine like Tony and some of these other thought leaders are probably, uh, influences on your life. So how do you bounce back from that? And, what happened after
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, that's a really great question because it's true. It's at that point. So here we are, living in California, new baby, losing it all, right? All of our friends and our families, like, guys, be responsible. Go back and get your jobs. You can instantly get 6-figure, 7-figure, jobs. And we're like, this is the vision and the promise that we made. And so when we left, we didn't have a lot of support. And so what do you have to do? You have to lean on the things that you have and the mentors and the books and the inspiration that keeps you moving forward. Because at that time, that was a real challenge. It's like you go from having millions in the bank to not knowing how you're gonna, what you're gonna pay for next, right? And that was a big mindset shift and an identity shift. We had to get really clear on, who are we as parents and as people and as contributors to the world. It's not what's in our bank account. It's who we are and how we navigate. And so because of that, it really helped us get through it. Wayne Dyer actually had launched the book right at the exact same time that we lost everything, which is Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. And we actually got to call Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra on Deepak Radio in San Diego. He used to run it on San Diego. And
Yeah,
we
I remember
remember
his.
that?
Well,
Yeah.
he. So I'm in North County now. I'm in La Costa, and
Hmm.
when I was members at La Costa Country Club down the road, he had his meditation center
Yes.
there. So we would
Yes.
go there to like do the yoga and stuff like
Yep.
that and meditations. It was awesome. And
Yeah.
obviously, above and beyond that, I've been a fan of his leadership books for years.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a real treasure too.
Yeah, and change our life, just thinking that way. And so that's what the foundation we built on. And from there, we left and we lived in surf breaks because we're both big surfers. That's how my husband and I actually met, is surfing. So we're like, well, what's the best thing to do? How do you get your mind out of it? Well, you go and do the things that you love every day together. And so that's really was our claim to getting through it is, we just went to the world's best surf breaks. We went to Mexico first, of course, made it simple and cheap, and then Nicaragua and Costa Rica and Panama, and worked our way down. And we went across the world to Southeast Asia and Fiji. Like we just kind of navigated. But the one thing that we did at the time, because remember, this is before the internet and social media came around, right? So right when we left, which was '08. YouTube had just YouTube had just kind of started to take off. There was no Facebook, no Instagram, none of that. And so we started to do video. We're like, okay, if there's one thing that we can do that's
You're like
free,
a
is
early travel influencer.
well, and before we knew what we were doing or how to even do it, right? We were just like doing videos every day. And
So good.
yeah, it was crazy. Like you can see our videos from that started 17 years ago. We we uh,
Wow.
we called ourselves the Unstoppable Family, and it was how to live an incredible life. I've got a video that was so poorly done because the camera, the upload took us 8 hours, right? And it was hilarious. But we did it every day, and people were like watching, like, what is this Unstoppable Family? Like, what are they doing? And at that point, I then started to build a foundation and kind of build a framework around what we were doing. And so I started helping people build their online brand. Like, look, if you're going to be online and you're going to run 3-line ads, I'll show you how to do that. But you have to be a brand. You have to have a message. You have to have a website. You have to have this. So I started, creating that for people. And because we were on the road for the first time, you know, literally the beginning, we used voice over IP, which is ridiculous. Like we were calling leads with voice over IP.
That's like
We
Skype, right?
well, and Skype hadn't even been around yet, right? Like not
Wow.
yet. So we're literally plugging our phones in, talking to people. We're like, listen, we're going to be in Fiji, and then when Skype came out, it's like we're on our way, and our computers on our shoulders, talking to people. They're like, where are you? What? Oh my God, it's crazy. So that helps. All of that helps, and because of the foundation of, you remember the book, The 4 Hour Work Week?
Oh yeah.
Tim
Is that Tim
Tim
Ferriss,
Ferriss.
right? Yeah, yeah.
So Tim Ferriss, that right before we left, that book came out. And everyone thought it was a joke. Well, my husband looked at it. He's like, chapter 17 says this thing about taking a mini retirement. And all you have to do is set up your structures properly so that you can live virtually, but have everything ran. So before we left, we were like, okay, virtual office kind of style. We had a sister was our, admin getting our mail. His parents were, opening up our letters, scanning it to us and taking pictures. It wasn't scanning, it was taking pictures and sending it. So we were like, we have an office, it's virtual now. And so when we did that, we were doing something that no one had done. And so everyone wanted to know about it. And from there, it just started to kick off. Business started to improve. I was still running 3-line ads, but then boom, here comes Facebook. And, YouTube, we're doing the videos. And then Facebook comes along. Well, because we had done so much work with Tim Ferriss, and because we were living it, I did a video about Tim Ferriss, and it's still also online. And I said, Tim, thank you so much. We're called the Unstoppable Family now. You told us how to set up mini retirements. Now we've lived in already 6 countries. My daughter is like 2, and I uploaded it to his Facebook page. This is before there was he didn't know what was going on. No one knew. And I was like, I can leave a post, but it's my video on Tim Ferriss's page. Well, he was just getting big too because of his book. Well, he didn't know what to do with his page. My video stayed on his page for a year. We made over $1 million with that video alone.
That's insane.
I'm not
That's
kidding.
so cool.
Like insane. And people are like, you got to be kidding. You guys did this. So of course, as you would, Tim Ferriss, we're in Panama, living in Panama. And I look over, I'm like, that's Tim Ferriss right there, Brian. Oh my gosh. Right. And so he is like, he's walking by me and I go, hey, Tim Ferriss. He goes, hey, Rhonda Swan. Like,
no way. He recognized you from that comment you put on his page.
He was like, I have no idea how to get that darn video off my Facebook page. It's like, Jim, and I told him, like, listen, thank you. You saved our life. Like, we did it all. And he goes, well, you know what? The greatest thing is that you're the only ones that have ever done it. No one else has ever done it. He goes, they talk about it. He's like, man, I was like, leave it up there, man. They're my best testimonial for my book. But little did he know that I was sending people over to my Swan Lifestyle website and selling them my branding, course. But it was brilliant. And so he then ended up figuring out, and he took it down, of course, as you will. And then I begged him to let me have another one.
No free rides, right?
Yeah, but that's how it started. And then from there, of course, we started to get a little bit more cash flow coming through. And then, we started doing a lot of out-of-the-box marketing. And I did a lot of out-of-the-box marketing training because people just didn't know how to use the internet. They didn't know how to use online. They didn't know how to do videos. And so now it's, kind of as you write it, it keeps growing, and building the story keeps growing as every little failure you make, the next becomes like the next breakthrough,
Yeah.
And
I love it.
yeah.
I love the story of reinvention. I love the comeback story. I love that, like, you guys figured out how did your mindset change around just like what was important and money, having gone through that situation where you lost everything, but it almost like set you free and propelled you on this adventure that you never would have had if it wasn't for that situation. I wonder, it must have felt like hell at the time, but how do you contextualize that journey now?
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, yeah, we thought we are so irresponsible. We've got this baby, we're dragging her around to serve breaks, we're doing this internet business thing that no one supports at the time. Our families still thought we were crazy. They still think we're crazy. Even it's been 18 years. They're like, that internet thing, I don't know. But it came to a point where, we had to get really super clear on what we wanted and where we wanted to go. And, from there, you start to really identify what you were and what you want to be for, especially my daughter, right? So at first it was like the glitz, the glam, the cars, all the houses. And then it became, who are we as humans and how can we leave an impact, an impression on our daughter? And for that, we became very humbled and, in a way where everything that came to us was a gift, and we would literally travel to places, collect the things that we had for that time, whether it's a month or 2 months, and give everything away.
Wow.
Everything away. We would start
cool.
over with a new bag every single time. And it's good and bad because my daughter, now 19, she became a hoarder. Like literally, when she got to Bali, when because we've been in Bali last 10 years, and she has her own apartment, and she's like, she didn't want to give away anything. Like she would save pencil shavings. You know, she's an artist, so she's like, I want to save this and this and this. Like, honey, it's okay. You know, you don't have to give it all away, and it's like it's not going to go away because we realized that's how our life was. We were just letting
Yeah.
everything go and starting over.
Sometimes when you're living, like we have a pretty non-traditional family. My kids are creator. They're, my daughter's a creator. She's only 12 and she has 60,000 followers on Instagram. They do
Nice.
acting, they do social media, they do modeling,
Hmm.
but and they've also homeschooled. So like I
Same.
think like sometimes with kids, like when you live this kind of like non-traditional lifestyle, and it's really fun and there's cool parts of it, but like we just spent 2 weeks in Europe, and then as soon as we get home, my son, all he wants to do is like play with his dinosaur toys,
Yeah,
for 2 weeks, because he's just been like every single night, like not we do kind of what you do, but in shorter sprints. Like we'll drive through the Spanish, Mediterranean, and stay at a different hotel every single night, and then keep going and keep adventuring. And we never have reservations. We didn't even have a return plane ticket. So we're kind of like short version of what you do.
yeah,
We're building up to it. But yeah, but
yeah.
kids sometimes they like when they overcompensate in certain directions, because it is, it's different than what their friends might be used to.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because my daughter, even, she, also homeschooled, and the last couple years, so she's 19 now, so she's like 15. She was like, guys, I think I need to like do this GED thing, or I need to, do these particular classes because I need to have this. We're like, why is she starting to feel that way? But it's
Hmm.
because she's seeing everyone at her age, even the people living in Bali, they were going to school and they were just following protocols. We're like, honey, really? Like, let's just look at the value of all this, And so we're talking to our kid about not going to school and not needing to
Hmm.
go through this processes. And she's like, "God, it seems so irresponsible." I'm like, well, yeah, that's kind of what it is. Like it's kind of the life we've lived, but of course, you realize like, oh yeah, actually that's just a box that everyone's been put in. And she thought she was doing it wrong because she wasn't following the pathway because all of her friends were. But now, she's Tony Robbins' head photographer, ClickFunnels head photographer, Dr. Dre's photographer, like
Wow.
because she's open to everything and has been not stuck in a traditional box and following traditional lines, right? Just like probably your kids too. We
Yeah.
don't follow the lines, we don't walk those lines, they're very wiggly.
I love it. I love it. All right. So, at what point did you officially start the Unstoppable agency, the Unstoppable branding agency? When it sounds like this was kind of a, basically it was kind of a natural progression where
Yeah.
you had figured out kind of these ways to growth hack, and
Hmm.
you were essentially like an early family YouTuber,
Yeah.
and you kind of an early travel creator, and then you kind of like noticed that entrepreneurs and CEOs and executives and authors needed to figure out what their brand was. So when did you start to
Yeah.
formalize the
Yeah.
ideas of what the Unstoppable branding agency is?
Yeah, the first 3 years was kind of trial and error and working with through things and throwing stuff in the air and see if it sticks. And then we got pretty serious in 2014 is when we had been now on the road for about 4 or 5 years, and I was selling other people's products, and so I I realized how important it was to go from, knowing someone or not knowing anyone, cold lead, to actually having a pseudo warm lead before that you spoke with them. And so that's really when we kicked it in and started. Our value ladder was building brand image, message, strategy, and then adding a PR component to it for credibility. And so we did that for about, I don't know, I've launched about 2,500 new brands and products and courses over these years. And 2019, I decided, instead of continuing to build courses and new brands, is to start with clients that had already been established and then really focus on their PR and media. And
I
so
love
that's what
that.
we've been focusing on the last 6, 7 years strong, is more of the media and the brand expansion through, PR and media.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then did you continue on with Unstoppable Family? Is that still a brand that you do anything through, or did that kind of, get sunset with you guys, ending up in Bali?
Yeah, well, we're still known as the Unstoppable Family. People see us all over the world, like, oh, you guys are the Unstoppable Family, because
That's
my
so good.
husband's the Unstoppable Surfer, my daughter was the Unstoppable Girl, I was the Unstoppable Mama. Like our company's Unstoppable Branding Agency. Like we've lived it. It's all through us. People will send us pictures and signs of if they see Unstoppable, they send it to us, which is hilarious, right? So, I mean that brand became pretty anchored. So it's still around, and we're still that, but we've now, of course, built multiple tiered brands through it and from it. But we're still known as the Unstoppable Family. And that story is actually book in. Are you
There you go. You're good.
still there? Oh, there we
Yep.
are. Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm like, what happened? There we are.
Yeah, so it looked like we got a little drop, but yeah, no big deal. So, it's interesting. Like you were so early to some of these themes, but I wonder if you have a take on kind of the, how, I mean, personal branding has never been more important, right? You have this new concept of the founder-led brand. LinkedIn has become a social network, so business
Mm.
owners are, going through this process of what they call like building out loud, where they're basically like it's like a reality TV show documenting the building of their company, whether they're a direct consumer brand selling, makeup, or whether they're AI startup. This idea of like people buy from people. And when you're out there kind of in front of the camera and putting yourself out there into the world as an entrepreneur, it builds trust, it builds loyalty, it builds real brand equity, and it builds a personal relationship with your audience that is unlike anything that a brand can do without kind of that corporate face. So it feels like a lot of the concepts that you've been flirting with and delivering from like very early in your career are now like mainstream. I wonder if you have a take on kind of the evolution and maybe the maturity of like the personal branding requirement, that it's almost like if you're a CEO and you can't get out there and ghostwrite and be in front of the camera, it's like almost like a prerequisite of the job now.
No, it's true. I mean, it's actually becoming more important now than ever because, like you said, it's like anyone can do the work now. Anyone, even a computer can do the work that we do. But the difference is who are you doing it with and who are you following? And so that's why I think our personal brands have become more important than they ever have. In fact, like I now host a show at Wall Street in New York, and our any of our founders that are coming through that I interview, like if they don't have a personal brand, they're even their investors, if they want to exit or sell, their investors are looking at what their message is, what their values are. Like they are literally being searched. And so that's, I think, now I call it our online birthmark is our personal brand. Our birthmark stays with us. It's our values. It's who we are. But now it's more important because 98% of people will search for your name no matter what, or your company before they decide to buy. That's just a given. And so now we have to take it a step farther. It's like, okay, now are we present online? But what we do specifically with Unstoppable Branding Agency, we pretty much cornered the market in 2000. And that was, I noticed, if you remember, Dylan, when you search up, let's say, a Tom Cruise, you search up Tom Cruise and you look at on Google and you see like all of his pictures are at the top of the search. On the right hand side, it's all his profile details and information. Like, no one can take away the fact that that's Tom Cruise, and no one can take his online real estate. Okay. So that's something that I realized in about 2000. I was searching my name, and then I was like searching, I think, a celebrity, and like, how do I get like that? How can I be like that? Why do they get to be like that? And so I was asked to be an Entrepreneur Magazine. I did a quote or something about personal branding. And because that article did so well, I was asked to do another one, and then another one, and then another one. And what happened is this: all of a sudden I search my name. I'm like, wait, how do I have these pictures at the top? And then how is my name now and my website on the right-hand side of a Google search?
Yeah, like the
And
Wikipedia stuff and like the Google real
so
estate kind of,
knowledge panel, exactly.
and probably changing even more now with AI, right? Like now it's all in chatbots because Google doesn't have Google doesn't really have a like when I did the research for you, I did it with Google Gemini, but I could have done it with any chatbot, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you why. This is where everyone needs to understand is, first off, when I figured this out, it was because Google indexes. If you have a credible source, Google will give credibility to that source, right? So let's like think about Forbes, right? Because that's the number one magazine, the highest domain rated, and the website on the internet. And so if your name is connected to a highly domain rated, meaning a lot of trafficked website, and it's being marked as a news credible source, that's an index. Okay, so every time your name sits on something that's indexed, that's credible, Google goes, oh yeah, oh, that's good, that's good, that's good. And so the more that happens, the more indexes happen, and you turn Google on to your name as a brand. So when I figured that out, I kept doing it. I'm like, okay, let me do more and more and more. And all of a sudden, my name looked like Tom Cruise because I was equally as credible because of the amount of publications that were talking about me. So I started doing that for my clients. Now, fast forward to now. Everyone's like, well, Google's no more. Google, it's ChatGPT, it's Gemini, it's this. True. However, this is the difference.
Well,
Our
PR
clients
is more
think that
important than ever now, right? It's actually
they never.
PR is having a renaissance right now because of the importance of AEO. So
There you go. That's exactly it. And I didn't even know what we were doing at the time, right? But our clients were like, "Hey, I'm searching myself as who's the top, dentist in Beverly Hills, and I'm showing up." Like, yeah, because for the last 8 months, I've been telling Google and telling AI and AEO that that's exactly the information they can pull from because they can only pull from credible sources. So we had already been doing it with SEO and publications. So now, AEI, now it's GEO, AEO, they're now only able to pull from credible sources. And we had been doing that with publications all along. So this is really why not only talking about what your brand's about, but anchoring it in and indexing it, because Google is still the space to tell the story, get it indexed, and that's the fastest way for AI bots to start pulling your data. The next is really putting it in your schema on your website, ensuring that your metadata, but your schema data is accurately stating exactly what you want the crawl bots to pull up. And that's something that we're winning now more than ever, because you're right, PR is like, people are thinking, oh, I can run ads, but ads end. And when ads
yeah,
end,
as
you're
soon as you
gone.
turn the ads off, then
You're
you're
gone. You're
essentially, yeah,
irrelevant.
it's like pay to play, right?
Yep, that's it.
So yeah, I was really curious. So getting a show on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange is pretty cool. How did that come about, and how do you go by using that show as a platform for building your personal brand, but also something that you can offer to clients?
Yeah, and so I had been asked. I started doing. It's funny. I actually wrote a book on how to create 30K in 30 days, and it was in Russell Brunson's 30-day challenge book. That was chapter 27, and he asked, "If you lost everything, what would you do?" And I said, "Well, I did lose everything. I'll tell you exactly what I did." And what I did is I went live every day, but I went live every day for 8 years, every single day.
Wow.
Every day I went live. And so everyone's like, oh my goodness, like now you have a show. And so I created my own show, the Rhonda Swan Show. And I'd been going live because I was like, well, if I'm going to get in front of people, this is my best marketing. It's free. Right. And if I go
Yeah.
live, Facebook was showing it off and pushing it. So I'm like, this is free marketing. So that's what I did, is I started going live. And then my show name became so popular, especially during COVID. I was interviewing people and putting them on Instagram. I wasn't even putting on any other network, and I was getting millions of viewers because everyone was looking for long form to watch, and Instagram really was trying to take over YouTube, and push, out of YouTube. And so they added and let us talk for 30 minutes if we wanted to on Instagram. And so my show became really popular. And then I was asked by NASDAQ, a producer at NASDAQ, to come in and host a show at NASDAQ. And I did that for a couple of years. I brought over $30 million through this show and this producer. But what happened is this: I was living in Bali. So when I would leave, I'd bring 30 of my clients through at least every time I came. They'd pay anywhere from 20 to 50 grand to be there for all the media. And I'd leave and they would close loops on me and back end me on deals with media. And so I was getting back ended, and my clients are thinking they're getting good deals. And instead, I'm like, yay, well, congratulations. And this guy's, pulling it from the back. So I came back, I quit that show. And when I came back to the US this last year, I said, okay, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. I'm not going to do it on lives. I'm not going to do it like everyone else is doing. I'm going to zig. I'm going to go and pitch my show to Newsmax, Bloomberg, CNBC, Fox Business, USA Today, and say, look, here's my history. This is what I can do. I want to not have you buy my show. I own it. I want to buy your airspace.
Wow.
Like,
so you're basically just doing a pay to play, basically just using their pipes.
That's it. I said, I want your space. Give me your ad space. So they'd have like 30 minutes.
Well,
of it
kind of goes back to, that first Tony Robbins infomercial you saw back in the day, right? It's like
exactly.
And now the TV is kind of on the decline. A lot of that inventory is probably available at a song, right?
Big time, right? And even like over the counter now, over the OTC, where you can go on Roku, you can go on Hulu, all of this now because it's all these streaming platforms. But when I pitched them, they were like, all right, of course you're going to become one of our advertisers. And because of that, I've grown Newsmax's Newsmax 2 channel like 33%. Their ratings have gone up because I was buying their ad space, so their normal TV time was improving because people were sticking around. And so then I did the same thing with USA Today. So all my shows are on USA Today. You can literally search online, Rhonda Swan show, USA Today. And I then now leverage all of their platforms. I interview my clients. I put them on these publications. So they not only get published, they get indexed, they get my interview, and I then help expand their brand just through media that I own. And, and that's the thing that I tell people. I'm like, look, get a show and let me help you get it onto a network. Let me put it on USA Today. It's an article. It's not a network. It's not CNBC anymore. It's not Fox because no one's watching that.
Yeah,
but they are pulling up and Googling.
It's syndicating through these traditional publishers that are all under pressure because, again, with AI, 60% of clicks are no longer leading to to a web page. People aren't going to .coms as much. So these guys probably all have a lot of remnant inventory that they need to unload.
They do. And, and everyone wants to be showcased, right? Because then you can use an article, you can use the recordings for your socials, but the article's index, so if I mean, USA Today is the 4th largest media company in the world and number 1 in USA, 58 million eyeballs every single day. I want to be
crazy.
there. I want to be there. And so that's how I do it. And that's how I leverage it. It builds my brand on a consistent basis because my name is my show. And then I put, of course, my clients next to my name, Dylan Conroy on the Rhonda Swan show. Boom, both of us are indexed. It's searchable. And of course, then the credibility is there because they get to use the logo as well and say, I've been seen on USA Today. So that part is still growing. And if you can see literally now, I'm like, if you look behind me, it's like, here's my Wall Street minute. I got my Hollywood minute. These are all from my microphones, right? I got my Pix 11 from New York, my Fox News, right? I got my Rhonda Swan show, USA Today. I'm like, guys, this is IP. You got to understand.
Yeah.
Everything you build and create is your IP and it's valuable. You can get your IP valuated, right? And sell. You can exit. You can take, loans against it, if you will, and tell the banks, listen, I've got something huge. I'm growing it bigger. This is what I can do. And that's the thing I think that people don't realize. Your personal brand is your IP. And that's your biggest bank account, is everything that you built and put your name on.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people think, you can just build your platform for social and you can have these big followings on these other these other places, but the open web, and especially like these news publications and these media properties that you're mentioning, they still have tremendous audience, tremendous cachet, and tremendous brand recognition. And
Mm-hmm.
you talk about that AEO component; it's like so important. So I think it's genius.
Well, and
Um,
they want to grow as well, right? Because they're growing along with AI too. So if you
yeah,
grow along with them, right? I give them all these ideas. They're like, okay, what do we do next? And that's, I think, the value that we hold is that, people, I'm a partner with them now. So I can pretty much get people the things that they could never get on their own now. And that's really where the leverage points, start to come. And that's where your value, like we said earlier, your personal brand, people know they can't get it unless they go through me because they know I'm the one that has it all, right? So you just create value for yourself that no one can duplicate. And that's why our personal brands are, such a big deal. I want people to go, wait, Rhonda can get us in there. They can't say everyone can get us there because no one can but me.
so good. I love it. Well, Rhonda, it's amazing what you're building. Your life story is super inspirational. You have an amazing energy and just a great vibe. So I'm glad we're able to do this interview. I think you've
Me
added a lot of
too.
value to the guests, and I think a lot of people who are listening will definitely be interested in taking a look at your services. So if folks want to tune into your show, follow along, stay in touch, where do you want to send people to follow along and learn more about what you're up to?
Yeah, I mean, I play really strong on Instagram. Of course, I'm everywhere, but Instagram is a big one. Of course, LinkedIn as well for business. But it's really simple. I always tell everyone do this: search my name, search Rhonda Swan. Then you'll see exactly what I do because you're like, she does look like Tom Cruise, right? And everything's present there. It shows the Rhonda Swan Show, USA Today. It shows all the things that I do. And I always tell people to do it exactly what I want their customers to do is search for them because that's the name of the game. And then of course you can search me up on AI because that's the easiest part is what's Rhonda Swan known for and let's see what you get. And then reach out to me and let's work together. But unstoppablebrandingagency.com is our website. RhondaSwan.com is also my personal brand website where all my shows are at as well. And you can get all the details there too.
Amazing. Well, thanks for spending some time with
Yeah.
the audience today. For those of you, if you're watching for the first time, don't forget to give us a follow or a subscribe. If you're listening, an honest review on whatever podcast platform you happen to be listening on is how we find a larger audience. So go ahead and do that. And last but not least, if there's an entrepreneur out there, maybe somebody who wants to get out of the corporate hamster wheel and launch that business idea or that personal brand that they've been rolling around in the back of their head, or just somebody who you think would enjoy the amazing high energy conversation that I had with Rhonda today, don't forget to share the show. And with that, we will see you all again shortly.